We apologize for the quality of this video. We are recording that on the phone. We don't have a camera yet. We would like to share with you some things first, like for example, why we named our channel Less Valuable.
Primary theories concerning sediment flow rate. Each of these theories can be further subcategorized into two distinct...
This is what's gonna kill me. You know what might make it less boring?
Thank you.
Some visual aids.
Wanna do it?
Sure. In the UK we have the House of Lords, and one such lord was speaking to a woman with stage 4 cancer during the pandemic regarding ending lockdowns, and he was in favour of ending them as soon as possible, whereas she said that in doing so, I feel like you feel like my life is not valuable. And his response was, I don't think your life's not valuable. I didn't say that at all. It's just less valuable.
When I watched this interview, I had so many emotions.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
Negative emotions just running through. Obviously I felt for the woman, and I just also kind of felt for myself because I've got disability, and I was thinking like, so obviously my life is also less valuable. I was working at the time, so I was thinking like, where's the idea came? I mean, well, I know kind of, and I know where his idea came from, but this is just completely wrong when it comes to valuing people.
Yeah, I think there is a sentiment among most people that, or maybe not most, but a lot of people, that if someone is disabled, they are less valuable, or they have less to contribute. But that's not true at all. Value can be defined in many different ways.
Yeah, value is not objective. It's basically, I mean, I hope this Lord, what's his name? Lord Sumption, whatever, and we don't really care about his name. As far as we concerned, like, it could be any Lord saying that. We hope that he's valued by his family, and and maybe he even has some close friends. I don't know. I don't really care, but that's the point. I don't really care, and because value things is objective and it can be measured in different ways. And for example, I don't know how this Lord measures value apart from looking at people whether they're healthy or not, and in which case he should look around the chamber or House of Lords, whatever it is called, and whether they are healthy, because there are quite a few of them, and they're not that young. They're not spring chickens, are they?
No, most of them not.
No, and also if he measures the value by how much we are worth to society, like in financial terms, then he should even look harder, because we are working, and I understand that they've got some work to do as well, but we pay taxes for their expenses that very often turn out to be over the top, and nowadays in UK becoming a lord is kind of being seen as just
a payoff.
Yeah. It's not noble nowadays. You can be Lord of Siberia and Hamptons at the same time. Somehow. So that's not how we look at people, and
I don't think people should be valued based on their ability or disability.
Nothing. No, it's just like, am I more valuable than Lord Sumptuous or Presumption or what? Yeah, the Lord whatever. No, I don't think so. I mean, I just don't even think in this categories. How valuable are you? I mean, this is just disgusting thinking for me, and that's why we call the channel Less Valuable. You're all welcome. Don't let people tell you that you're less valuable because of anything. That's the message. This is it. Since we recorded this video, we realized that Lord would ever clarified his statement on Good Morning Britain. He used age as the main value indicator, bringing his own grandchildren into it. First of all, as pointed out by Piers Morgan on this one rare occasion when he's right, a person who did a great deed and raised a lot of money for charity, Captain Tom, was 98 when he did that. Following his death, his daughters, who are obviously younger than him, are under investigation for taking advantage of the charity set up in his name and are ruining his legacy. Secondly, you cannot predict the consequences of leaving a family without a parent when you prioritize based on age. For instance, choosing the life of an unborn baby over a mother who already has children. I could go on like this forever. This is a subject for another video, but clearly you can see there's a lot more than could be said. One important remark here, as we know, life is not as simple as age. By his definition, he should, however, vacate his seat in the House of Lords, as his participation in creation of UK laws is less valuable than the contribution of his grandchildren. And I would like to point out here the title of Lord. He's given for life, and it can be denied. He didn't deny it, he took it. He's taking a job from someone younger who could do it. We created this channel really because my condition is quite unique. I've got something called stiff person syndrome. Hopefully through this channel we will show you some of the difficulties that come with this disorder, like being in an interabled relationship, how difficult it is to diagnose it, what is a standard treatment for it, how we save money for that treatment because we had to actually self-fund it. Basically anything that comes with stem cell transplant. I'm planning on doing lots of videos about stiff person syndrome and stem cell transplant because this is what my stiff person ultimately led to. I can talk about that, I can talk about how to prepare better than I did. But we also want to keep this channel not just stiff person oriented, we want to keep it light.
Just not heavy subjects all the time.
Yeah, just show you some things in the kitchen that we can't cook, basically. Maybe
some things that we can cook too.
Yeah, we can show you some things that we can cook, but we got some wacky ideas sometimes how to change recipes. I mean, I don't follow recipes anyway, but so yeah, you'll see. Maybe some commentary stuff. There's things that we disagree on, like we really disagree about, like very popular movies like Inception. I understand it.
Don't start.
I just really don't like it. We can show you a little bit of our mi casa, our house, which we bought a year before I got disabled and we didn't finish it. It's just, we're gonna flex a bit. The garden is so dilapidated. Dilapidated. I always say dilapidated.
I know you do, and I always correct you, but you never pick up. Yes, I've corrected you at least 5 times before,
see?
And then I just gave up.
You're gonna see more of this.
And I even corrected it here for you.
I need new glasses. But in this video, I will just tell you about my journey, our journey with stiff person syndrome. I'm going to call it SPS from now on, just so you know. So you can find general information about the disorder on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is the best thing ever. Anyone in the world can write anything they want about any subject. so you know you are getting the best possible information.
And there's a good website about rare diseases, and I will drop some links that I found helpful in the description box. But in a nutshell, it's a very, very rare condition, and occurs to 1 million people, and it happened to me.
Just one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, 1 in a million. I really don't like this phrase. It's very cliche. I'm 1 in a million. Oh my god. I really don't like when people comment, you are 1 in a million. No, I just work kind of, but not in a good way. I can be a dick. Proper dick. On average, it takes... Are you nodding? On average, it takes years to get diagnosis, but that is usually when you have a slow onset. That is the most prevalent type of onset, the slow one. Mine was very quick. It's a neurological / autoimmune disorder. It's very progressive, can ultimately be fatal. Well, it can. It actually is fatal.
Not in all cases. It's not everyone that gets it will die of stiff person
Everyone
syndrome.
who gets it will die.
Everyone that gets it will die. It just as everyone in the world will die.
Technically, it's incurable. However, there is an experimental treatment that some people went through, and I am one of these people. And we don't really know whether that's going to help or not.
Not long term.
Whatever happens, I will always have it. I would just be in remission. It's really hard to find the statistics about, when we're talking about death, it's really hard to find the statistics because it really depends when you get diagnosed. I got it when I was 33. Yeah, as a matter of fact, our road to diagnosis was such a doozy that...
Woozy. I know it is a doozy this time, because you always say woozy.
you just said doozy. Who doesn't speak English here?
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
We're going to make separate video about diagnosis because it was a very painful road, and I basically just diagnosed myself in the end, and I had to just find people that I could convince that this is what it is, because otherwise I would just be dead at this point.
It's possible.
Yeah, but general rule is that I read that the quicker you get the diagnosis, the chances of stabilizing the condition are
with treatment
is higher. With treatment, of course, yeah. I heard of a doctor who actually recommended yoga to a patient. There are different variants of stiff person syndrome. Mine is classic. You can find more information about, again, in this pages that I'm going to put link in descriptions for. So mine is a typical classic stiff person syndrome, which means it attacks my lumbar region.
Trunk muscles.
Mostly trunk muscles, yes, thank you. And I've got autoimmune aspects, which according to Wikipedia, again, is 80% of people have antibodies, and there's an easy test that can be done.
It's the GAD65 antibodies test. You can have these antibodies and not feel any negative effects whatsoever, but it depends how high the units are within your blood.
Well, yeah, some people have the antibodies when they got type 1 diabetes and they don't have stiff person syndrome.
If you're having the symptoms of stiff person syndrome and you have these antibodies, then it's highly likely that you have stiff person syndrome.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk more about symptoms that occur to me, that happen to me.
But what these antibodies do is they kill off GAD in your system, and GAD is what's used to synthesize GABA,
It's a precursor
Yeah.
for making GABA, and GABA is a neurotransmitter.
It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter.
Yeah, so it's basically it just works opposite to adrenaline.
Well, it blocks nerve signals, so it helps with anxiety and stress, and
physically and psychologically.
Physically, not having enough GABA in your system means that the signals are constantly firing off, and that's where you get the muscle stiffness.
What happened to me was back in July 2017. It actually started with me having difficulty talking. Whenever I was talking, I had this squeezing sensation around my abdominal muscles, and it would just stop me in the middle of the sentence. But then I could still carry on. I don't think it was that detectable, was it? It was barely detectable when I was talking to you.
I mean, I would notice it occasionally, but it wasn't so severe that I would wonder, well, what the hell was that?
No, I was kind of like, was uncomfortable, but I didn't really think much of it. A few weeks later, I was at work and I was trying to throw something into the bin thing. I thought a trash can, but bin.
I can't allow that, I'm afraid.
It's proper English. Can't have American English in my script, I guess. So I was supposed.
It's just me being silly. I need to pick up it.
I was going to do like a dunk kind of thing to do rubbish bin, and something just squeezed me like right inside my chest. Something just gripped me and just stopped me halfway through. I just couldn't move. I was with a friend at the time. He asked, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So we just moved on, and in a similar way, like 30 seconds later, I just stopped in place with a cup of tea in my hand while I was walking back on my desk. I just couldn't move. I couldn't take another step, and that lasted maybe a second or two. So that alarmed me a little bit, but still not enough to visit the doctor, but not enough to actually do anything about it. The same evening, because that was Friday, we came home and were sitting in the sofa, and then I just felt this locking sensation at the bottom of my back in the lumbar region. Well, I'm not really showing it, but
most people know what the lumbar region is.
You would be surprised, actually.
The lower back.
Lower back, yeah. And later that evening, I noticed another weird thing. I got spooked by something upstairs, and I felt this shock running through my body, and that was it. And I just rolled through the weekend. I was hunched a little bit. I didn't think much about it at the time. We were doing a lot of work around the house at the same time. I was thinking like, I'll probably.
It's just a bit of back pain.
Yeah, I probably strained my back. And the symptoms were really weird. It wasn't like normal back pain. It was more of a stiffness. So that was Friday, and then fast forward to Wednesday, next week, and that I suffered proper SPS attack. That was my first one. So I was at work, sitting on my desk, and then my lower back felt like it locked again. I was stiff. It was so stiff that I actually couldn't move. I asked my manager if I could go home, and I quickly discovered that I couldn't move. So I was completely locked. I had to be pulled in a wheelchair, and I was wheeled to the car. So that was my first proper SPS attack, but I didn't know that at the time. And from that moment, like everything like snowballed. I was walking hunched. I never straightened up. And I noticed that I had difficulty with crossing the street. Every time I was trying to cross the street, I just something was just telling me no. And apparently it's called dromophobia. It's a condition that happens to people who had accidents, but also to people who have stiff person syndrome. at the same time, I couldn't walk without holding onto a wall, or at least being close to a wall, so I couldn't deal with open spaces at all. And I was very, very aware of my surroundings, and everything was causing some sort of sensory overload. Every time I was walking, I was pretty much trying to walk to the doctor from our car. My intermittent inability to talk, like, you know. Previously, my inability to walk was was intermittent to the point that, you know, that was barely noticeable. But with time, it changed into constant spasming of my diaphragm. So doctor thought I had anxiety, because very often I asked Dion to talk for me, and they were just looking, and I was just really struggling. I was sweating a lot while trying to talk at the same time. It was getting colder outside, and I started having issues with doing everything outside. So we got a wheelchair. And then when we got a wheelchair, I developed even more issues. So I couldn't get into the car, and I couldn't get out of the car on my own. I needed help. At home, I started noticing that stress was one of my worst enemies. And I'm saying at home because I wasn't working at that time. I wasn't able to do anything pretty much. So I noticed that whenever I was stressed, then I was like everything was stressing me out, and it wasn't just a normal stress. Well, my start-to response became so over the top that, like, bumping into the smallest thing would send shock through my back. If I actually bumped onto a bed, for example, that
not even that, it was just touching something that you weren't expecting to be there would do.
Yes, yeah. Knocking to the door downstairs, even when I was upstairs, would send me to painful spasms. Unexpected touch was a big no for me. I mean, I got used to Dion. He was the only one who could actually help me. Anytime I was in the hospital, well, in A&E, I wasn't actually properly in the hospital at that time. When people were trying to help me and they were trying to hold my hand, I just really didn't want anyone to touch me. Also, I stopped talking to my family at the time, which was very upsetting to my mom, unfortunately. But any emotions, because my family was very emotional about the whole thing, and my mom used to cry a lot, and when she cried, then obviously I had to cry too. So when I was emotional, that was sending me into spasms as well. So I stopped answering calls. Sorry, Mom. She doesn't understand English. I noticed at some point that even simple tasks, like even something as silly as walking on the floor, and if there was a cable on the floor, I couldn't cross it. It was basically laying flat on the floor. We had lots of cables at the time in the bedroom, and they were like laying pretty much flat. They were secure.
It was just like a completely irrational fear.
Yeah, I didn't know why I couldn't do it. I had to hold onto something or just cross it like sideways. I couldn't just make a step over it. So that was just really ridiculous. And you were getting pretty frustrated with me at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, because I just felt like you weren't trying enough, but then I just didn't understand what was going on at the time.
Yeah, and I was really upset because I didn't know what was going on now. So I could no longer take showers, not only because I couldn't stand like in position, but also the water running down my body was an issue. It was just a sensory overload as well. So at the same time I couldn't even like get into a bathtub, so Dion was helping me to get into a bathtub, washing me, basically washing my hair, and I couldn't even sit in a bathtub, so I had to like kneel. It's a really weird position that we figured out that worked for me. So that was a struggle. Around the same time I started regurgitating food. I was quite suspicious at the time. I kind of knew that could be SPS, and all the symptoms were showing that it might be. My bladder was affected. There wasn't an hour without me going to the bathroom when I had to pee, or when I was really stressed out, I was having some accidents, so I had to wear incontinence pads. Any type of infection would exacerbate my symptoms, even lack of sleep. Even when I was on my period, my SPS would just get worse. My symptoms at the time, because I didn't know it was SPS, would just get worse. At that time I was almost completely bedridden, and it's been months since the onset of my symptoms. And then I finally diagnosed myself, and I managed to convince Dion and then a neurologist that I have SPS. I started being properly medicated 6 months after the onset. I was actually given gabapentin by one of the GPs, so gabapentin helped me a little bit initially, but that wore off very quickly. I will tell you about the drugs later. Even though I was put on the correct drugs, the dose was increased very quickly, I was still progressing very, very fast. I started having full stiffness episodes where I just couldn't move at all. I was just laying in bed, and Dion would have to cover me with blankets to keep me really, really warm, and I would take a muscle relaxant that would relieve the stiffness, and after 15-20 minutes I was able to move again. Unfortunately, after a while I started having seizure-like episodes, which was really, really weird, because the bottom part of my body just was doing whatever it felt like doing. My legs were kind of flipping, and at the same time my chest was just squashing me so much that I could barely breathe. I was gasping for air.
This was about a year after the diagnosis.
Yeah.
At least started.
Yeah. The last time it actually occurred, I actually really thought I was going to die. I thought that was the end. For some period of time, I was lying on the floor and I stopped breathing completely. Dion he checked my pulse and oxygen level, and my oxygen dropped to 83%, and my pulse was around 100.
180, yeah.
That particular one was, because normally I was just gasping for air, and it was like 10 minutes, and then I would just start hyperventilating, and that was it. That was the end of it. But that particular time, I just stopped breathing completely, and I just remember that everything was so quiet, and I was so scared, and I was on the floor thinking that I'm dying. I couldn't say anything to Dion. I just felt so squashed. Like, I feel like my entire body was trying to just shrink. It's really hard to explain. I just felt like I feel like I was gonna explode. And it's just, people with stiff person syndrome understand that, because sometimes the attacks are so severe they can break bones. And knowing that 10% of people with SPS die due to asphyxiation, we pushed at that point for experimental stem cell transplant, which is autologous, I was my own donor. We had to self-fund it because
it's experimental. There's not enough evidence that it works. The National Health Service here wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, but we're advocating for it from the very, very beginning of it, because I kind of felt that my onset is just was so quick. And
I think in the same way that being treated as early as possible helps you stabilize the condition. Having a stem cell transplant as early as possible improves your chances of making a better recovery.
Yes, I can talk about stem cell transplant in another video. Actually, I'm planning on doing that. So now a little bit about the pills that I was put on. So as I mentioned, the first one was gabapentin, which is also called Neurontin. And it helped, as I said, it helped initially. I know that some people vouch for it. The problem was that diazepam, also known as Valium. So basically, this is a drug that is really stigmatized, and unfortunately, in this condition, like any type of benzodiazepine, are almost like always crucial, and they are.
Well, yeah, they replace the GABA that's missing, basically. If you don't have a benzodiazepine, then you're not going to be very functional. In most cases, in more severe cases, probably.
Yeah, so that was a game changer for me. I was on a very large dose. I was on 60 milligrams a day.
But your body quickly adjusts to it
Yeah.
the longer you take it.
Yeah, then I was given baclofen, and it's supposed to work really, really well with benzodiazepines. I don't know whether baclofen actually helps me or not. I'm still taking it at the moment. But the one that actually is always missed, and doctors in Britain don't know much about it, is tizanidine. This one actually helped me a lot. Some people say that it doesn't help them, and I'm only saying that because I used to be in a support group, so like we used to share what kind of drugs we were on, and I know that some people were saying that it was completely useless, but for me that was actually the one that always, whenever I had the full stiffness episode, I was taking it, and 20 minutes later I was good to go. But also it would put me to sleep very often, lower my blood pressure a lot. When you got stiff person syndrome, at some point you have to be on some type of opioids for pain. After 6 months, when I got diagnosed, I got back to work, and when I was sitting at my chair, I was working as a software engineer, I was feeling pain in my shoulders, so it's good to have some kind of different opioids as a backup plan. I had tramadol. Another thing that I was given was plasma exchange. Some people are given that regularly, and apparently it helps them. In my case, it not only didn't help me, but also made things so much worse because I developed some complications. I can make a video about it if you want. And IVIG, which I was given like every 4 weeks, and it helped initially, but then it just was more.
It did help. It continued to help to a certain extent, but not enough. It wasn't putting you back on your feet. It was no. Kind of a waste of money, really, considering how expensive the treatment is.
Well, this one we didn't have
to pay for it, but still, it was a waste of money for the NHS to keep continuing with it.
Yeah, we didn't know how to react if I was taken off it. Mm-hmm. I continued to take it every 4 weeks for over a year. Lots of people actually who have this condition and who don't have such quick onset as me and not such aggressive, they find IVIG helpful, so try it. Just push your doctor for it. Other helpful things is like definitely sleeping. Sleeping helps a lot. Sleeping paralyzes the muscles. So if you've got vivid dreams, you don't hurt yourself while trying to jump through the bridge or whatever.
Don't punch someone.
Or you don't beat people up while sleeping. But yeah, I definitely felt better every time I was getting up. I had this like couple of minutes when I felt normal, even when I wasn't on drugs. I felt like, oh my god, maybe this is it. Maybe this is a day when when I'm better. Mm-hmm. And then then a couple of minutes later it would be back. It wasn't even a couple of minutes, it was probably like 30 seconds. Alcohol helps a lot, yeah, but we're not advocating for drinking alcohol.
It's not a sustainable treatment at all.
Also, you're not supposed to drink it with such ridiculous amount of drugs, but because I developed dependency at that point, tolerance, it didn't really matter. Probably don't do it. I'm just saying that it helps. Another thing is just don't panic, I guess. Like whenever you get this spasming so hard that you can't breathe, it's really hard to not panic. But it's easy for me to say don't panic. I panicked every single time I couldn't breathe because that's just natural reaction. However, because there are two types, like one type was when I couldn't breathe and the other one was when I was like completely locked. So when you're completely locked, just don't panic, just ask. You will have to have someone to take care of you basically. At later stage I also noticed that when I couldn't take the pills properly, I would just bite through them. I don't know whether that's a good thing to do or not. They're disgusting. Some of them are really, really bitter. But if you feel like you got stiff person syndrome, push for everything basically. For diagnosis, push for medication. Some doctors are very stubborn. I heard of cases when people were told to change the diet and do yoga. That's not going to help. This is serious, progressive, officially incurable disorder. So yeah, yoga is not going to help. The sooner you get on drugs, the better for you.
And there's a lot of negativity around diazepam, but it is essential for stiff person syndrome.
And benzodiazepines,
it
doesn't have to be diazepam, it can be clonazepam, but any kind of benzo, yeah. Mm-hmm. But diazepam is the usual.
It's the first line of treatment.
Yes. In the end, I had stem cell transplant done. I can't really tell you how I'm doing at the moment because I'm on less pills. So instead of 60 milligrams of diazepam, I'm on 45. And this is my second week of dropping 5 milligrams. So I'm not feeling very well. My back is killing me at the moment.
But the fact that you can lower the doses of diazepam, things like that, it is positive.
Yes. I think beta blockers are also helping me, so maybe we should try that as well. Another thing, yeah, that I should have mentioned, like if you're actually caring for someone, you have to be really patient.
Yeah. Patience is very important.
You have to.
Because by not being patient, you can make things worse.
Hopefully you found it helpful. And if you made it so far, we thank you. Thank you for watching. You can contact us through our socials. We're gonna put them on the screen. So yeah, thanks.